Hi, my name is Serena Arora. I am an Ayurvedic Health Practitioner and certified yoga therapist, and this is a series of talks that brings Ayurvedic practices to promote optimal health and sustainable healing. And I really look forward to sharing them with you. So good afternoon. Thank you for coming back. Today is our first 30 minute session of Ayurveda together. So it's going to be little pieces of what we're doing in session, what we're doing in the mornings, and start to start to look at them from an Ayurvedic lens. So now that you have your foundation, now you can really start to connect the dots between Ayurveda, human potential work, the yoga, all of the stuff that you are doing, experiencing, feeling, and start to really see yourself and be able to map it out. And so I'm going to start with the Kriyas. The Kriyas are really, really key piece of the practice. And oftentimes, I'm going to just give you a view into the future. What we want you to leave with, we do not want this to be just this flash in the pan. 15 days, come with us, we're going to take you on this ride and like leave feeling a certain way and then see ya, and you're home. And it's like, what do I do with all this? Or you are not even, you'll be like a different person. You'll feel like a different person. You'll be looking through life through a different lens. You may already be. And so when you go back to familiar, but with a different lens, that's where the work begins. And so what we hope for you, what we wish for you, what we aim to provide you with is something we call a brim practice, okay? And that is in your book, but it's also on a poster in the studio. And you don't need to know this fully, but I want to give you a snapshot of what you will take home with you so that you can start to plant the seeds during your time here. Because the worst thing to do is go home and have all this stuff, feel super overwhelmed, and then you know what, I know I've done it many times. I've been in these trainings. I will go home and I'm like, I'm going to do all this stuff that's new and I'm going to implement, and then I do it for a week, and then after 8 days it's like, okay, I'll do this one a little bit later. Then in 9 days I'm like, oh, maybe I won't do that. And then 10 days, 14 days I'm like doing half of it, and then 3 weeks later I'm like, fell off the wagon. And that is so common. And when you fall off the wagon, it's just this, to get back up again is very, very challenging. It's like that reinforcing loop of gotta do it again. It's not sustainable. It's like, I gotta find something else. And so to take home a brim practice is what is going to be your biggest bang for your buck. The things that you learn here, that you are going to take one of these things and take it home. And I'll tell you, in most of the trainings, the Swastis, we call you Swastis after when you're part of the Swastha family, they say that their brim practice has changed. That was the cornerstone of keeping it going. It's just something so simple, really bite-sized things that are chewable, that are digestible, that you can take home. Not this big chunk, and it's not possible. It's not doable. One of those things was Kriyas, and I'm going to come back to that. Some people say like the Kriyas are like that's their staple. It's like that's what they take home, and that's what they did. And if they don't do anything else except just maybe even one Kriya, they've been able to sustain vitality, health in some ways. We got so many emails during the pandemic, so many texts and messages and emails saying that thank God they had taken the training before the pandemic. Otherwise, they don't really know where they would have been. And they use this brim, okay? So the first one is breath. you've learned a few breath practices, you are taking breath with you, Kriyas are breath practices. Just one breath that is like key for you, the king breath for your, maybe your dosha, maybe for your imbalance, maybe the one that you know you need the most. And it's like 1 minute. 1 minute. Everyone can do 1 minute of breath. Yes? R stands for ritual. So something you really hold sacred. What is this ritual that you're going to do every day? Maybe it's hot water. I'm going to do hot water every day, and that's my ritual. I get up, I put the kettle on, and you can, and then after a while, you won't be able to. You'll crave it. You won't be able to do without it in some ways. Intention. You will leave here with an intention, and that is, you've already started that. Last night's conversation was the opening portal to that. And by the end of that, you will leave with your very personal intention, the one that is the most effective for you. Not one of those like fluffy resolutions that we never get, that we forget about in June, by June, right? It's really like, what is this intention that is for me? It's like your North Star. Every time you notice you're going off balance, how do you come back? And you will notice. You'll notice it. You've already seen in the conversation last night. Okay, when I do this, when I feel this, this is what happens. When I'm faced with confrontation, I do this. This is what I sound like. And now you're going to start to notice it. And each time, what is it? What's my intention? To get me back on track. And then these two, they're interchangeable. First one was meditation or movement, or again, interchangeable, movement or meditation. So some kind of seated practice, some kind of meditation. So or maybe not even seated. Maybe my meditation is washing the dishes. And I wash my dishes mindfully. And I just take my time, and it's that is a meditation. It's like, I know I have to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to meditate on this. It's going to be this very meditation in motion. Maybe it's walking your dog, and that is like, I'm going to every time I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to be very mindful of my steps that I take, and then you have this meditation that you follow. It could be sitting for 1 minute. I'm going to sit for 1 minute. That's it. And I'm just going to focus on my breath, and that's it. Movement, and we'll talk about this as we go on. Movement is really the key. It's like biggest bang for your buck. It's not an hour-long yoga class in the morning. It's not, I'm going to do 30 minutes of breath work, then think about it. You're up at 6, you're eating, you've got yoga, you do breath work, you meditate, then you do your yoga. That's 3 hours long. You're not going to take that home. You're not going to do 3 hours of practice that's insane. So it's like, I'm going to do one movement, and we're going to talk about which movements are going to help your imbalance specifically, what's good for your constitution specifically. And then maybe it's maybe a piece of the sequence, and we'll break that down. Okay? So I just wanted to plant that seed for you. Okay, so keep that in mind as we have these talks, during these afternoons. So as I said, one of the things that people take home with them are Kriyas. And they really, sometimes it feels to me, it's like we do them a lot, they can be really quick, and biggest bang for your buck in some ways. They're powerful, they can be. And so each of the Kriyas, we'll talk about that now, fits into each of the domains, each of the 3 domains. So the first one speaks to our physical domain. And if you consider your physical body, I like to consider the bottom half of your body your body. And this is where, and I've said it before in class, this is where your truth is. You know the saying, trust your gut? That's it. Trust your gut. And somewhere along the line, and oftentimes when there's trauma or even little t traumas, small traumas, big traumas, or pain associated with it, and we've said it before, we often cut ourselves off. We cut ourselves off from here down. It's too much pain. I don't want to deal with it. Cut it off. I'm just going to think my way through life, and that's it. Feeling, not for me anymore. And we cut off the physical body, the physical sensations. I remember being in Mexico City doing a workshop for a really amazing Ayurvedic company out there. And I gave personal consultations to most of these people that were in the workshop. So it was a lot of, probably over 60 people I gave consultations to over the span of that week. And it was so shocking how many people had something from their body had been removed. So they were like, oh, well, I had this thing, and I asked the doctor and they couldn't figure it out, so then they took it out. So I had this thing and they took out my gallbladder. I had this thing, so they took out my uterus. I had this thing, so they took out my right kidney. I had this thing, so they took out part of my hip. I had this thing, so they took out part of my liver. All of these things were being taken out. And it really was the when in doubt, take it out. And there was all these stories of they took it out, but it wasn't that. So then they took this out, and then they took this out. And it was a chain. There was one woman where there was a chain of, her uterus was gone, her gallbladder was gone, and her left kidney, part of her left kidney was gone. Because they couldn't figure out what was happening, what her condition was, her issue was. So it was shocking. And, her last resort is Ayurveda. And she's like, because she still had her condition. After being completely, literally torn apart, ripped apart, and now all these missing parts of her, she's disassociated completely. She doesn't have that feeling. And when an organ is taken out, you still have that space. So you can still feel that. And you can still also, and according to yoga therapy, give that area prana, give that area breath and direct breath into that area to find some healing from the inside out. And so all of that to say, the physical body is something that we need to come back to. And the Kriyas allow for that, especially the first Kriya, which is Kapalabhati, breath of fire. And it's bringing your attention deep down. Eyes closed for this one is key. It is essential. If you notice you're opening your eyes during this breath, if you're opening your eyes and you're looking out, your attention is up here or out here and not down here, ask yourself why that is. Okay? So this is a really important practice of getting out of here, bridging this gap, and getting low. And so you must take the time to descend. Take the time to descend. And even though it's the first one, that's why it's the first one, because it's the most powerful. So if you consider yourself building a fire. So you start with, what do you start with to build a fire? Kindling. So you kindling there, and then you just start to, light it, and then maybe some leaves, a little bit more, whatever, dry grass, whatever that you need to start building this fire. Then you can start adding small branches. Then you can start adding pieces of wood. But it's a slow build. Otherwise, what happens? Yeah, it's out. Agni is out. The fire is out. So this is the beginning. And so closing your eyes and just exploring where you're at that morning. Because we're different every morning, every day, every moment of every day. And so where am I? So the build. Start to pump your belly. Start to pump. It's really slow. You can start slowly. Get a feel for it. Start to build it. You can start to make it a little bit quicker. And it's the pump, No inhalation. The inhalation comes automatically with the release of your belly. Release, pump, release, pump, release, pump, release. If you're not releasing your belly, you're doing this. Do you see that? It's in, and then you have to have a big inhale. In, you run out of air. But if you actually physically release your belly, then you'll get air. The lungs will refill. It's very key. This speaks to our physical domain, is Kapalabhati, and it speaks to the seat of Vata. This is the seat of Vata. Vata lives in your pelvis. That's, I don't know, some of you, I did some hands-on assisting. I pressed down on your pelvis at the beginning. Some of you may have felt it, some of you not. And how did that feel? Those of you who felt it. Yeah? It is one of the most grounding places to touch. So if you can physically press on your pelvis, and your pelvis can hold a lot of pressure, physically press on your pelvis. Put a sandbag on your pelvis. Get an assist. That's why squeezing your legs into your pelvis, this pressure is actually quite good for feeling grounded. That's why we're pulling our legs in. We're plugging our bones into our body. And by putting pressure on the seat of the dosha, seat of Vata, you are actually decreasing the dosha. And that's what we want. We want to put pressure on the seat of Vata. So in our legs and in our pelvis, this area right here. And that is going to decrease Vata. That's going to decrease air and space. We want that. We want that. We want to put the dosha back into its seat. We want to put it back into our pelvis, back into our colon, so we can expel it. Yes, wind relieving, right? Wind relieving. It's relieving wind. It's putting pressure into your pelvis so it can go out. The air can go out. The Vata can leave. That is very, very important. Vata needs to go into this. It's fine in the seat. It's fine in the colon because it can be pushed out. What happens when it starts to wreak havoc is when it starts to move out of this area. When it moves out of its seat. Vata in your, I don't know, what's Vata in your stomach? What do you feel? Vata in your lungs. Right? Asthma and well, congestion is kapha in your lungs, but Vata in your lungs is like yeah, and movement and asthma, like wheezing, dryness. Vata in your eyes, dry eyes. Vata in your heart, tachycardia. Okay, really high. So we don't want Vata up here. Ground, move it down, get it back into its seat. Okay? And that's what Kapalabhati, breath of fire, does. It pulls Vata back down into its own seat, and it starts the fire. Starts the fire, burns the Agni. So if you look on page 22, you'll see it, and you'll see the way that it pacifies Vata. Explains it. Is it 22?
No, it's the cleansing technique Kriyas are on 34.
34.
34.
Thank you. Okay, I'm an old.
It would be 22, but we don't have a 20.
Ah, right. It got taken out. Okay, thank you. So the seat of Vata is the colon and the pelvic region. By stimulating and putting pressure on this area, we're able to reduce qualities of Vata, air, space, dry and cold, and bring prana to the area instead, whereby massaging, warming, and removing obstructions in the colon. Yes, that's what we need. As well as other digestive and reproductive organs, specifically the prostate and the ovaries. So this is a specific breath for prostate. Specific, it directs prana directly to the prostate and the ovaries. So if you have, I don't know, cystic ovaries, or if you have painful menstruation, or you have, that's Vata in your ovaries. If you have scanty periods, if you have reproductive issues like erectile dysfunction, if you have any reproductive issues that have to do with Vata, this breath can start to regulate it. It can start to bring prana into this space. I have had women who have not had their period in 2 years come to this training, do Kapalabhati for 3 days, and they get their period. And they are crying. It's like, this works. So take this breath very seriously. All of this, these kriyas, very seriously. Okay. Next one is emotional domain. Emotional domain lives up here. Emotional is in the lungs, in the stomach, in this chest cavity area. Okay. Also in your kidneys, because your kidneys are quite high. You know, you think they're kind of low. Well, they're like, well, I guess they're about here. But that whole area, okay? All right, here, stomach, low, chest, all this area, whole cavity, torso. So now, we're moving the torso. You're not, I know I saw some of you, sometimes it's just the shoulders. It's not the shoulders. Arch, round, arch, round, arch, round. Use really vigorous movement in your torso. You're opening and squeezing all your front organs, all your side organs, and you are ultimately squeezing the lungs. Squeeze your lungs, and pushing air through your lungs. And not only that, but the fire that you started. Now the heat, now your bellow breath. You're putting air into this fire to make it, now we're putting in little branches. Putting branches on the kindling. You started the kindling, now it's branches, getting a little bit bigger. You're starting to really tend to your fire. This is where you tend to your fire. I want to keep it going. I'm not going to let it go out. I'm really going to work hard to give it what it needs. Your arms are also there for the ride. And there's force. It's forceful. It's not, you know, the Vata Kriya, okay? Or I've seen, okay? There's focus and force and directness into this. That's what Kriya is. Kriya is to cleanse. Lose control. Lose control. I know that's difficult for most people to even fathom. How can I lose control? This is the opportunity to let whatever needs to arise, arise. What is in your body, what comes out of your body, not your head. You don't have to understand it. I said that earlier this morning. You don't have to understand it. It's your body is releasing, maybe even, and we said it earlier, lineages. So maybe even stuff that isn't even yours that you're carrying. Maybe it's previous lifetimes. Maybe it's maternal line, maybe it's paternal line, maybe it's whatever's coming in, whatever has been manifested in you, in your body, and you don't need, this will surface. And this is the power of this practice. So this is the emotional domain. It is the seat of Kapha. Kapha lives in your lungs and your chest area. So why? Because we can get mucus out of our lungs. We can cough it out. And this is like, you know, that one where we did bellows breath really strongly. Go to your edge. Go to your edge. If you need to go and cough. If you're coughing, sneezing, whatever comes out, let it come out. So pushing it out forcefully, using the diaphragm. The diaphragm, as you do that, you're squeezing the diaphragm up into the bottom thirds of your lungs, and you're removing the emotions of grief, sadness, loneliness that live in the lungs. Breath practices are right here for us. They're free. They're in your back pocket. You can do it anytime. Anytime. And so if you can get that out of your lungs through breath, then you're going to make more room for the opposite, for joy, for some ease. Okay. The last one is cognitive, up here, brain. And when we think, this is like the thinking. Who thinks a lot? Like Vata, Pitta, Kapha. Who thinks a lot? Pittas. And the Pitta, so this is the idea of like getting it out, like throwing it out of your mind. Not only that, but you're squeezing the seat of Pitta, which is your small intestine. So the small intestine is here, and literally you're squeezing, and that twisting action can start to open up some of the side bodies, and you're going to release that heat that the Pittas accumulate. So this are the emotions of anger, irritation, jealousy, frustration, judgment, and they cause more the mental ama, the mental toxicity that keeps the story alive, that keeps feeding our bodies and keeps feeding us the negativity, the toxicity. And so if yelling needs to come out, if swearing needs to come out, if words come out, and also the sounds that you hear might trigger. Now the fire has built, it's being built. Now it's like put the wood on, and now it's this raging fire. You are hot. And now I saw a few of you sweat during the Kriyas. Yes? Does anybody sweat during the Kriyas? Okay, so that's it. That's good. You're doing good work. So let that sweat, this is where now it's like this rage, this fire is burning. And now let's push it away. Let's get that fire burning and burn away what needs to be burned away. And I was going to say the sounds sometimes trigger memories, trigger things that maybe we have put away, the things that we don't want to hear. Okay, and this is like no. This is the no. Maybe you've said no in the past and it went unheard. Maybe someone did not hear your no. What is coming up and out? So the fire has grown, it's been nurtured, and it's building, and heat rises. So now the heat is coming up and out through your breath, through your voice, through sound, so let out the heat, let it out. Because all of that heat you don't want it just to be built for nothing. Now it's whatever that sounds like to you, and push it out so that you can find a space of meditation in your time in meditation afterwards, a space of residual. Now it's the smoke, whatever the smoke is that's being caught, that has been created. What is that residual that will then show itself to you in the meditation? Okay. So if I were to just finish the diagram, Vata is the seat of Vata is in the pelvis. The seat of, wrong color, that's okay. Seat of Kapha, lungs, good. And stomach too, so getting it out. And then the seat of Pitta in the, so your stomach's quite high. We don't think of our stomach as very high, but it is. Let's make that circle bigger. Okay. Small intestine. All right. And so this is the way you clean your cup. This is the way you empty your cup. This is the way you put it through the washing machine, right, Noelle? And the dishwasher, even. So it's like, how are you washing yourself out? And it's going to take some agitation. Get uncomfortable, lose control, make sound. Be with it all. Whatever comes up, be with it. All right. Thank you.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
The Kapalabhati says at your own pace for 3 minutes. Do you
Yeah.
recommend the other two as well for 3?
So the Kriyas are 3 minutes long, each one of them. So that's what, I don't know if we did it for 3 minutes today. We did? Yeah. Yeah, so the first day was a little bit shorter. What's that?
We definitely did.
You definitely did. Okay. Yeah. And so that's like the time. Yeah. So each one. And let's just say Kapala. Repeat. Kapala means forehead. This is my Kapala. Small one. Bhati. Yeah. So shining. Bhati means shining. So shining forehead. You're literally creating fire to shine your skull, to clear away the clutter, the cloud, the shroud, the story. You're literally clearing away. You're shining out your forehead. Or shining skull, some people say. Shining skull. Okay? All right. Thank you.